My stepbrother tended to me for 10 years, and at his coming-of-age ceremony, I tried to give my life away. Instead, he called me a flirtatious bastard, just like the rest of them. He was a different man from then on, distant and insulting. He was betrothed to a noblewoman from a high family and made love to other women in front of me. I decided to leave and follow my uncle to the border. But reserved stepbrother, however, went crazy looking for me. Point 1 Uncle, I am willing to go to the border with you. Hearing my words, my uncle was surprised for a split second, then revealed a color of relief. He smiled and said, "Ning, don't worry. Uncle has a military honor. Will certainly not let you suffer. The scenery in the north is magnificent, much better than the capital. Wait to arrange all the affairs. A month later we will set sail." I nodded in silence. On the carriage back to Chui Mansion, I held a begonia flower branch patterned warmer to warm myself. I suddenly remembered that Derek Culver had found a skillful craftsman outside of the mansion to make the stove especially for me last year. At that time, I was in love with this exquisite stove. And he smiled warmly and said, "Begonias and Wannings go extremely well together." Plum blossoms fell on his shoulders, searing red. My heart heated up quickly at that moment. This is the 19-year-old Derek Culver, and 17-year-old Jane Marlowe. The maid purple butterfly put my white fox fur cloak carefully into the trousseau. Sighed. This excellent white fox fur. The whole house. Only the girl has. Even the third girl does not have. The big son of the real good to you. Derek Culver knew that the white fox fur cloak was a good match for Ning. Derek Culver knows that I am afraid of the cold, and has always been very attentive to these small things. Derek Culver knows that I am afraid of the cold, and has always been very attentive to these small things. He hunts white foxes with his own hands, and orders people to make a cloak and send it to my room. Nina Culver has had a couple of problems with him over this, and said, "Jane Marlowe is just that bitch's drag. So how can she be worthy of the love and care of her brother? Compared to her, the first daughter of the Riverside Culver family, I really don't deserve it." But Derek Culver never took those words to heart. He was good to me for 10 years. So good that I almost forgot that I was a parasite, and forgot about the heartbreaking rumors. Unfortunately, Derek Culver and I were never the same again. After my mother died, Derek Culver had our yards moved to the same place. I watched him grow from a young boy into a man like an orchid. As we spent time together, I grew to have an insatiable appetite for him. I fell in love with Derek Culver, my nominal brother. On the day of his coronation, all the high families of the capital came to observe the ceremony. I was in no position to show up on such a day. I waited in my own courtyard with the gifts I had already prepared. At nightfall, Derek Culver returned, smelling of alcohol. Seeing me, he walked in quickly. Seeing that his steps were so weak that he almost fell, I rushed forward to help him. The good-smelling fragrance of his body poured into my nostrils, arousing the repressed feelings in my heart. I wrapped my arms around him and took the opportunity to say that I adored him. And Derek Culver took a step back, sobered up. He looked at me with sunken eyes, as if he was looking at something filthy. "Ning, you and I are brother and sister. Do you know what is meant by human intercourse?" I was stung by his gaze and said regardless, "Anna Culver is your sister. I have a different father from you. What kind of brother and sister am I?" Oh, I looked into his eyes doggedly. Derek Culver's brows were knitted tightly. "If I had known this was going to happen, I shouldn't have left you behind in the first place. You are, indeed, flirtatious and frivolous. Just like your mother." His words plunged straight into my heart, churning it to a bloody pulp. I could have cared less what others said about me. But hearing him say that made me shiver with difficulty. I suppressed the trembling in my body and asked, "Is it wrong to be pleased with someone?" Is it wrong to want to be with the person you love? Seeing that I did not die, Derek Culver's face sank even deeper, and he said in a cold voice, self-willed and lowly, irredeemable. This was the first time in 10 years that he had spoken harshly to me. But just this one sentence. I built up my dignity little by little, crushed to the ground. And with that, he whisked me away. The news that Derek Culver and I had parted on bad terms was well known in the Choi household. The next day, the meal in my room became cold and stale. Once upon a time, with Derek Culver taking care of me, the underlings didn't dare to neglect me. Now that he has abandoned me, the subordinates have taken advantage of the situation and vented all the grievances they have accumulated over the years. On the 10th day after the commingafage ceremony, the news of the marriage between the Riverside Culver family and the Hilltop Ludwig family spread. Everyone in the capital was talking about the suddenness of the marriage. My heart ached. It was Derek Culver's fear of getting into trouble with me and spoiling his reputation that had caused him to rush to betroth himself to the Ludwig girl. I wanted to see him and waited in his courtyard every day. The boy threw me out and said, "Your Highness is a valuable person. You can't just see him whenever you want to." I smiled and handed over the silver. "I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but it'll leave after I say a few words." Nina Culver happened to be passing by. She snatched the silver from my hand and sneered, taking my Choi family's money and rewarding my Choi family's servant. Jane Marlowe, you are really shameless. Before I had a chance to argue, I saw a girl walk over. Nina Culver saw her. Her face changed from cloudy to sunny. She took her hand and called out, "Sister-in-law." The sound of sister-in-law exploded in my head. I froze for half a moment before I reacted. It turned out that the delicate young girl in front of me was Lila Ludwig, the daughter of the Hilltop Ludwig family, who was betrothed to Derek Culver, and she was really a noble daughter of a high-class family who had been raised in a pile of gold and jade, and no matter whether in terms of her manners or her appearance, she was a perfect match for Derek Culver. The bottom of my eyes swelled. My heart surged with an unspeakable sourness. Lila Ludwig heard Nina Culver's name. White face reddened, scolded, onion and immodest. "In case I tell Mrs. Choi to tear your mouth." At the mention of Mrs. Choi, Nina Culver looked at me with even worse eyes. Lila Ludwig looked at me curiously and marveled. "There is such a divine beauty in Cui's house. Why doesn't Onion introduce me to her?" Nina Culver snorted lightly and said, "What fairy beauty? It is just a foxy embryo like her mother. Just now she even wanted to go to my brother's courtyard." Halfway through her words, she thought of Lila Ludwig's identity and stopped her mouth. But the women of the High family are all seven-knuckled. Just by saying half of the words, Lila Ludwig guessed who I was, and her gaze toward me took on a look of disdain. "What are you doing here?" Suddenly, Derek Culver's voice sounded behind me. I looked over in surprise as Derek Culver skipped past me and walked over to Lila Ludwig. His eyes were on her, and he didn't even give me a wink. They stood together as if they were a couple, Lila Ludwig with a shy face and Derek Culver smiling softly at her. The scene was blinding. I stared at them like a wagging wild dog. "There are some things you don't say that you'll never get the chance to say again." I spoke in a hard voice. "Do you still blame me for the other day?" Derek Culver's smile froze. He probably didn't expect that I would say it unabashedly in front of people. Derek Culver said in a hushed voice, "Enning, take Miss Lou for a stroll in the garden. Oh, I have something to say to Onino." Nina Culver gave me a gloating look and left on the arm of Lila Ludwig. When their backs disappeared, I could no longer hold back the acidity in my eyes. Tears fluttered down my face. I asked, "Do you blame me for rushing to settle down with a marriage because I blamed my mouth for thinking ill of you?" Derek Culver's face was cold, and he spoke quietly. "What has Hilltop Ludwig family's marriage to Riverside Culver family got to do with you?" In the past, Derek Culver was not like this. When I was bullied by the Choi family's subordinates and hid to wipe my tears in secret, He would use his own handkerchief to wipe my tears. He would say, "A woman's tears are counted. It's not worth it to shed tears for someone who bullies you." I remembered his words, so I didn't cry easily anymore. Today, when I shed tears in front of him again, there was only indifference and impatience in his eyes. I suppressed the throbbing pain in my heart and spoke word by word. "I know you value etiquette and law, and that you read the sages' books and practice the way of the saints. But in 10 years, hasn't there been a moment of wavering? You obviously, to me and Nina Culver, are different." These words seemed to have touched his backbone. He snapped. "The Chui clan is the top of the 5 family names, and am going to inherit the position of the family head in the future. So naturally, the clan wife should be chosen from a high-ranking family. A clean and innocent woman." He deliberately emphasized clean and innocent to see me retreat. I only remembered Derek Culver's kindness to me, but I forgot that the big families care about honor. How could he want me when I had a mother like that? My thoughts drifted away, thinking of the woman who gave birth to me, but with her own hands, pressed me into the mud to live. My father died young, and my mother remarried with me. She was already criticized for being a second wife, but she fell in love at first sight with Chui Huaiji, the head of the Riverside Culver family. My mother left my stepfather, and Chui Huaiji repudiated his wife and married another. The incident was a big deal, and no one among the high families in the capital knew about it or didn't criticize it. From then on, my mother became a third marriage. I became the Qinghe Chui family girl with a different surname. Who would have thought that my mother would die suddenly after only 4 years of splendor? They all said that I was as unchaste and unclean as my mother. Everyone shunned me, but Derek Culver stood in front of me and said, "Once Jane Marlowe is in the Chui family, she is a Chui girl, and no one can drive her away." The young man was thin, but his spine was straight, like a young animal protecting its food. This scene has been engraved in my mind for many years. From then on, I decided that he was the most important person in the world to me. Only, I couldn't figure it out. How he was able to separate my mother from me, instead of taking it out on me, like Nina Culver did. Then I realized. He was the first son of the Riverside Culver family, who had high hopes, and had been raised as a gentleman. Maybe it was the gentleman who was noble and open-hearted enough to tolerate my little indignity. It was not in vain that I went to the study to bring him food day after day for the past 4 years. Following my mother from house to house, I've long since learned how to read people's minds and be humble. But Derek Culver has always treated me kindly. He is like a mountain moon that shines down on the world, regardless of whether you are a noble or a lowly person. I am used to being treated coldly. Only he, like with hot air like warm me, let me this decade. There is still some warmth. It is also this warmth that makes me more deeply rely on him, and then cannot be extricated. A cold voice exploded in my ears, calling back my thoughts. Derek Culver raised his hand, dabbed the tears at the corners of my eyes, and said, "Jane Marlowe, did your mother teach you to do this kind of affection?" There was a flash of contempt in his eyes. I looked at the man in front of me and felt a little strange. The heater in my hand seemed to have stopped warming up all of a sudden. All that was left was the silky coolness of the copper walls, soaking through my entire body from my fingertips. I came here today because I wanted to tell him that my uncle had returned to the capital and wanted to take me away. But as soon as we met, we did not hold back and dwelled on this for a long time. I know that Derek Culver is cool to outsiders, but I didn't expect that even after 10 years of our companionship, his warmth would withdraw so quickly. I still save a trace of fluke. His heart has long removed me clean. Make room for new people. Perhaps Derek Culver's kindness to me was just a sign of benevolence to fulfill all those holy truths he read. As soon as I step out of line, he'll pull all that warmth out of me. The world abuses and insults me, but when he is mentioned, he will only praise a high righteousness. At this time, I realize that even the bright mountain moon also has a shadow, and then noble and open-hearted gentleman, heart will also despise people like me. 3 days ago, when my uncle said he would take me away from the Chui family, I had not yet made up my mind. But the coolness in Derek Culver's eyes woke me up. I thought it was time to leave this place that had never accepted me. Once, Derek Culver had given me a home. Now, I have no home. The tears on my face were dried by the wind, tearing at my flesh. He stopped looking at me, seemingly worn out of patience. I hung my head, trying to hide the pain under my eyes. He was the only person who had ever been kind to me, I thought, and should have said goodbye properly. But every word stuck in my throat. I'm leaving. In a month, leave the capital with my uncle. I expected him to be surprised at least, but the silence around me was frightening. I looked up only to realize that at some point, he had already left. My words were blown away into the air. Like the whimpering of a small beast. 4 girl, someone passed a letter in through the corner door. Zi Dai ran over in a panic. After seeing the mess on my face, Zi Dai was surprised for a moment. Then she painfully helped me clean up my makeup, and the more she wiped, the more messy it became. A hot pain rose on my face. I stopped her movements, took the letter from her hand. I saw that the letter had read, Ò Ning, the new house in Northridge County has been arranged. When the matter in the capital is over, you can leave. Northridge County is the city in the Northland, the place where Uncle is going to take me. The letterhead in my hand was suddenly a bit hot. I clutched it and walked back in a wooden manner. Purple Butterfly followed me step by step, carefully asking, Miss, the knee pads you sewed for the Grand Duke, can you send them over? I didn't reply. She advised, the Grand Duke has always loved you. If he knew that you worked day and night on this pair of knee pads, he would be heartbroken, and his anger would be calmed down. She thought Derek Culver and I were just having a disagreement. I didn't say a word and silently started packing my bag. Except for what I brought with me, I left the rest here, and I didn't take any of the new clothes Derek Culver bought for me, or the strange things he brought back every time he went out. Once upon a time, he treated me well, and these things had his shadow, so I loved them. Now that he loathes me, these things have become dead weights. What are you doing, miss? Are you leaving here? Zi Dai said and sobbed. I stopped what I was doing, sighed, helped her wipe her tears and said, Zi Dai, I am not a proper girl of the Chui family. I have to leave eventually. No need to be sad. Zi Dai pulled my hand and said, if you leave, what will Zi Dai do? What will the Grand Duke do? I smiled bitterly. Zi Dai is the son of the Chui family, so naturally she doesn't have to worry about her future. As for Derek Culver, he should really want me to go. After all, the first son of the Riverside Culver family, who is upright and pure, the only blemish in his life is me. I glanced at the pair of knee pads, a gift for Derek Culver's coronation, the silk cotton in which I personally chose. Every stitch and every thread of the silk pads was made with my heart and soul. But now, I can't use them. I commanded, Zi Dai, throw away the knee pads. Zi Dai bit her lip and held the knee pads as she walked out the door. When she was about to step out of the courtyard door, I called out to her again. Said, it's better, take it back. Purple Butterfly ran back with small steps. I gently caressed the knee pads and seemed to be able to touch the begonia flower embroidered in the mezzanine. I thought, congratulatory gift or to send, as a thank you. Derek Culver, so many years of care grace. In the daytime, there are many people. At night, I took the knee pads to Derek Culver's courtyard. The boy was not there, so I went straight towards the study where the lamp was lit. The door to the study was hidden. Pushed the door in. A strong smell of alcohol on the face of Derek Culver. Has never liked to drink. So many years. But also only in the commingafage ceremony that day drunk. And today is why. I approached him slowly. He leaned back in his chair. His face flushed red. His lips buzzing. Saying something. I put the knee pads down. Lowered my head to listen carefully. Suddenly, with a strong tug, I fell into a hot embrace. I panicked for a split second, struggling to get up. He tightened his arms, and the fragrance of the wine mixed with the fragrance of the hundreds of wash, smoked my head dizzy. When I was in love, he suddenly lowered his head and called in a low voice in my ear, "Iris, mother, even drunk, are you thinking about Lila Ludwig?" His burning breath pounded on my ears. But my heart chilled. My struggling movements stuttered and my body grew stiff. Perhaps it was my stiffness that awakened his senses. The next second, I was pushed out. I fell to the floor, and Derek Culver, holding the corner of his forehead, looked at me askance, his narrow phoenix eyes as cold as water. "Jane Marlowe, you really don't know how to be ashamed." The charm in his eyes was for Lila Ludwig. The piercing words in his mouth were for me. He thought I was so cheap that I was going to offer myself up. In the old days, I would have pleaded my case. But now, it mattered less what he thought of me. I slowly got up and straightened my skirt. A few trails of blood were left on the hem of my skirt, and it was only then that I realized that the skin on my palm was broken. Derek Culver's eyes flickered for a moment when he saw that I was hurt, and then quickly returned to their coldness. I gazed at him quietly and said, "It's a congratulatory gift that I didn't get to send on the day of the commingafage ceremony. I wish you seasonal blessings, autumn sway and winter jubilee." Derek Culver's eyes fell to the knee pads. Thin lips pursed up tightly. A flicker of remorse in his eyes. After I finished, I turned around and was about to leave. He suddenly opened his lips and said, 3 days later, Consort Shu's birthday, held a banquet in the palace, gave you a post. I was a bit surprised. If I go to such an occasion, I will not be able to avoid being humiliated by those noblewomen. Derek Culver knows about it, and will always help me to put it off. I asked, "Can I not go?" He said in a deep voice, "Consort Shu is Shuekai's sister, and the Chui family can't refuse to go to her banquet as a matter of course." I lowered my eyes and said softly, "Okay, in 3 days." I did many things. I let Dai sell the calligraphy and paintings I made in my spare time, and dug out the wine I buried under the begonia tree with Derek Culver on my birthday. I sat under the tree and drank it in small sips, from early morning till late evening, until I drank all the wine in the urn. The begonias were not in bloom. The branches were sluggish and barren, just like my state of mind. 3 days later, I was carried to the palace in a thin sedan chair. Sedan chair 4 sides of the wind leakage. I was some regret. Should not be white fox fur cloak locked into the mahogany box. Elite noble families. All noble women gathered Consort Shu Jingle Palace. I stood in an inconspicuous corner, but Nina Culver saw me. She took Lila Ludwig's hand and walked towards me. Sneeringly, she said, "I wondered who it was, but it turns out to be our big Miss Jiang. There are no men in this Jingle Palace, so isn't it a shame that you're so talented at fox charming?" Lila Ludwig tugged on her sleeve and said, "Onion is careful with her words, although Jiang de Lian's reputation is a little worse, but after all, she is fostered in the Chui family, so at least give her some face." It looks like Lila Ludwig is speaking for me, but every word is a thorn in my side. The crowd, who were originally unsure of what was going on, after hearing her words, all of them threw contemptuous gazes at me. So she is Su Wantong's daughter, a mother who hooks up with a family man, and her daughter looks like a charming woman who can hook up with people. If I had such a mother, I would have crashed my head to death long ago. Unlike others who live such a good life and dare to come out to participate in the palace banquet, I heard that she did not know what means won the eyes of the Chui family's eldest son. The two are very close together. Who knows the surface brother and sister? But secretly, what is the scene? Hearing the mention of Derek Culver, Nina Culver, who was watching the joke, said with a straight face, "Don't talk nonsense. My brother is a gentleman, but he took pity on her and kept her in the Chui family. How can she be compared to my brother? Such a wanderer." Riverside Culver family was the first of the 5 surnames, and Nina Culver's words carried a lot of weight amongst the noblewomen. Nina Culver proudly held up Lila Ludwig's hand, a jade bracelet of begonias and leaves on her snow-white wrist. I froze. "This jade bracelet looks familiar," Nina Culver said. "My brother is betrothed to Sister Zukite, and this is the token of our Chui family," she said. I suddenly remembered that this bracelet was originally placed in Derek Culver's study, on the top floor of the multi-treasure pavilion. Once, I was curious and took it out. But Derek Culver took it back and said, "This is not something you should touch." No wonder he was so out of sorts. I really shouldn't, and didn't deserve to, touch a token given to my future bride. I averted my eyes, not wanting to look at that blinding white. Alone, I walked outside the temple to get some air, not realizing that Lila Ludwig had followed me. 6 Lila Ludwig suddenly stopped me in my tracks. I was unsteady on my feet and collided with her. I quickly held her arm and said, "Miss Liu, be careful." Lila Ludwig suddenly approached me and said in a lowered voice, "Jane Marlowe, you'd better behave yourself, or I won't let you stay even if he can tolerate you." The woman who had been so dignified just a few moments before had a twisted look on her face. I looked at her in surprise. She snorted, "I have seen many women like you since I was young. Don't think that I can't see that you have those dirty thoughts about him. From now on, you'll be living under my thumb, and if you don't behave, I'll have plenty of ways to grind you down." The malice in Lila Ludwig's words was cutting. I smiled and asked, "What makes you so sure I'll be working under you?" A look of disbelief flashed across Lila Ludwig's face. "What do you mean by that?" I did not wish to explain with her and folded back into the middle of the great hall. I drank one glass of wine after another, but I didn't feel drunk at all. It was hard to stay up until the end of the palace banquet. When I got to the entrance of the palace, I saw Derek Culver, who was holding 2 cloaks in his hand, and greeted Nina Culver and Lila Ludwig when he saw them. Nina Culver took one of the cloaks, and then asked Derek Culver to put the other cloak on Lila Ludwig, and Derek Culver's eyes swept over me, and then he put the cloak on me. Derek Culver swept his eyes over me, hesitated, and then draped the cloak over Lila Ludwig, whose white face flushed. Lila Ludwig's white face blushed, and her shyness was a far cry from the resentment she felt when she was facing me, and Derek Culver thoughtfully led the way for Lila Ludwig. I looked at the cozy scene in front of me, and my heart ached. One is his own sister, the other is his new wife. I was the only one who was an outsider. After being blown all the way by the cold wind and walking the palace road for a long time, my feet were already numb with cold. When I saw the thin sedan chair at the entrance of the palace, I couldn't help but shiver. Derek Culver suddenly stopped his steps and said to me, "Come and sit in this carriage. You can't bear the cold." At that, Lila Ludwig's face, hidden in her cloak, whitened slightly. Nina Culver grunted. I shook my head. "No, I can still take it." Derek Culver, however, beckoned the bearer of the thin sedan chair to return. "What now? Get in the car or walk back." His stubbornness was strange, but I didn't want to look into it. I said obediently, "They'll do as my brother says." Derek Culver's face changed. His eyes rolled with emotions I couldn't understand. Until he got into the carriage. He had a sullen face and didn't say a word. Nina Culver pulled Lila Ludwig to talk to her. And Lila Ludwig had a face of innocence and naivety. Lila Ludwig's fiery gaze fell on Derek Culver from time to time. He put away his pensive color and gave her a light smile back. The love between the two people flow, no longer inserted into the third person. The bottom of my eyes are a little sour. Panicked to lift the curtain to look outside. The curfew had been postponed, and the road was bustling with activity. Lila Ludwig suddenly got excited and said, "Let's go enjoy the lanterns," and Nina Culver agreed. Nina Culver echoed, "It's very interesting to travel the streets at night. So let's do it, brother." The two of them looked at Derek Culver expectantly, and as I was wincing from the cold and my knees ached under my gown, Derek Culver hesitated for a moment and said, "I'll let you do it." I smiled bitterly. He was the one who hunted white foxes for me because he was worried about my cold. He was the one who found a skilled craftsman to make me a begonia stove, and now he is the one who wants me to accompany his fiancée on a night trip in the snow. Men. They are really fickle. I lowered the curtain and hooked my lips. "I'm not well, so I won't be going. So make yourselves at home." Derek Culver sank his face and said coldly, "Don't spoil the fun." Ignoring my refusal, he pulled me out of the carriage. I couldn't open my eyes in the cold wind, but Nina Culver and Lila Ludwig, wrapped in their cloaks, didn't feel the chill at all. I followed them with my chest in my hands. All I could think about was the warmth of the coals, and Lila Ludwig stopped at a lantern stand. She picks up a rabbit lantern and holds it up to Derek Culver with a smile on her face and asks, "Is it nice?" Derek Culver looked at her with a warm gaze and nodded gently. "It's nice." For a while, I didn't know whether he was praising the lamp or the person. Derek Culver doesn't like to make a lot of noise, but he was willing to accompany Lila Ludwig to enjoy the lanterns, so it seems that he really loves her. I hooked my lips. This is good. Derek Culver and I have our own place to go. And each of us is well. It's just a pity that I won't be able to see the beauty of a talented man and a beautiful woman for much longer. 7 Suddenly, there was a commotion in the crowd. I don't know who exclaimed, "The gantry is going to fall." I subconsciously looked up. I saw a gantry full of lights coming down on us next to the lantern stalls. Lila Ludwig and I were standing right in the center. In the nick of time, Derek Culver ducked out of the way with Lila Ludwig in his arms. I couldn't get out of the way and was crushed under the gantry. The oil from the lantern pouring over me. I couldn't tell which was worse, the pain of the fire or the pain of the impact. Derek Culver tried to come to my rescue, and Lila Ludwig leaned into Derek Culver's arms, shivering, clutching his sleeve. Nina Culver ran over from the distance and said worriedly, "Sister Snow Iris is in shock. We need to go back and settle down quickly." Derek Culver hesitated for a split second and said, "Shu Qin, go save the people. I will send Miss Lu back to the house first." I lay on the ground and watched Derek Culver embrace Lila Ludwig and leave. 10 years ago. A thinly built teenager with a straight spine protected me. His back, etched in my mind for many years. And the man who turned around decisively in front of me, how could it not be reunited? The onlookers are talking, a rare beauty. It would be a pity if she got a scar on her body. Wasn't that the Chui family's son? What a hero rescuing a beauty. What's a hero saving a beauty? Can't you see that he's in love with the girl he saved? They are clearly a couple. These words, mixed with the cold wind, drilled into my ears. I lay on the snow, feeling that time moves so slowly. Shu Qin, alone, couldn't lift the gantry, and the onlookers weren't going to help. My hair was on fire with kerosene, and the smell of burning hit the tip of my nose. My mother's face crossed in front of my eyes. When I was young, my mother used to say, a woman should care for her hair as she cares for her life. I asked why. She said, win a man's devotion. That's where you get the word off from. She said, a woman's greatest blessing is to find a good man and live in peace. My name, in 3 short characters, is all about men. I don't know if my mother had a peaceful life. I only know that even 10 years after her death, the stigma has not been washed away. I too had wanted, as she said, to entrust myself to a man. There was a time when I thought that Derek Culver could be entrusted to me, and I went after him like a moth to a flame. Only to end up like this. Maybe Mother was wrong. In this world, what a woman can rely on is never more than herself. Some tired, head drowsy. Suddenly heard a voice. Enning. I forced myself to open my eyes and saw my uncle roll over and dismount from his horse, galloping towards me. Uncle is here. It's all right. I closed my eyes in peace. Uncle lifted the gantry with one hand and swept me up in his arms. Shu Qin scolded, madman, put down my girl. Uncle ignored him and only shouted uncontrollably, Enning, Enning, wake up. I wanted to reply, but couldn't open my mouth. Then I lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I was in a strange mansion. Uncle walked into the inner room and said happily, Enning, you finally woke up. I will go call the doctor. I pulled his sleeve and asked, how long have I been unconscious? Dazed. I endured the sharp pain in my body and sat up, saying, I want to go back. Uncle pressed down on my shoulder, his face full of anger. Why are you still going back? I have inquired clearly. It's the Chui family's kid who left you at the Lantern Festival. In vain I used to consider him a good one, but now it seems that he's also a hypocrite who is thin-skinned and unsympathetic. I shook my head. It's out of character for an unmarried woman to stay out, so I have to go back and make it clear before I leave in a dignified manner. My uncle couldn't resist me, so he agreed to send me back to the Chui family. At that moment, the palace officials came to deliver an order, saying that His Majesty had summoned my uncle. Uneasily, my uncle instructed, the affairs in the capital will be over in 7 days, and I will personally go to the Chui family to fetch you then. I squeezed out a placating smile and nodded. I dragged my body full of injuries back to the Chui mansion and hobbled back to the small courtyard. There was something unusual about the atmosphere on the way. I lifted my breath and pushed open the door to my room. In the next second, I was yanked in and heavily pressed against the door. Point 8. I let out a cry of pain and raised my eyes, meeting a pair of gloomy eyes. What is brother doing? I asked. Fighting back the pain in my body, Derek Culver's eyes dimmed a few points. When did you hook up with an outside boy? You don't come home for 2 days. Where do you hang out? Uncle is far away in the borderlands. People in the capital haven't seen much of him. I don't blame Derek Culver for misunderstanding. It's just that the accident at the Lantern Festival was so tragic that he didn't care about my injuries first, but came to care about my virginity instead. And the moment he opened his mouth, it was the crime of seducing an outside man. I smiled, speaking faintly, where I went and what I did. What does it have to do with elder brother? Derek Culver narrowed his eyes and said with a straight face, you are a daughter of the Chui family, and your words and actions are related to the reputation of a family of women, so it is only natural that I have to ask about it. I said, soon it won't be necessary for elder brother to bother. Derek Culver frowned and increased the force on his hand, pursuing. What do you mean by that? The blood blisters on my body were stuck to my lingerie, and when he pulled on it, it hurt like hell. Derek Culver finally realized that I was different and relaxed his grip. Relaxed the force in his hand. Your injury. I stabilized my stance and faintly said, it's not a problem. Brother should go and care for the Liu family girl. It's not worth wasting time on me. Derek Culver spoke uncomfortably. Ò Ning, don't be petty anymore. Commingafage ceremony that day's incident. I can treat it as if it never happened. As long as you don't move your mind that you shouldn't have from now on. Oh, he said words of forgiveness to me. A gentlemanly demeanor with a clear breeze and a bright moon. If I were to dwell on it, I would be too unintelligent. I shook my head. It won't happen. What? I said. From now on, I won't think about things I shouldn't. Don't worry, brother. It should be hard to say this. But at the moment, I could only feel the pain in my flesh. My heart seems to be numb. Hearing my promise, Derek Culver wasn't very cheerful. He still shackled me. I raised my eyes and wondered. Is it time for my brother to let go of me? Or is it the elder brother who can't control his mind? In Derek Culver's eyes, there was a flash of horror. Abruptly let go of his hand. Dropping a sentence, "You take care of yourself," and left with hurried steps. I slowly slid down the door of the room. My heart was dead silent, and I couldn't set off any more waves. Dai hurried in and caught my sliding body. I lay on the couch for many days. And Derek Culver never appeared again. There were only 3 days left before my uncle came to fetch me. Purple Butterfly ambled over to the side of my couch and said in a rambling manner, "Miss, today is your birthday. Should we go invite the Grand Duke to come?" I shook my head. Said, "This year's birthday, I'll spend it with you." I let Dai help me to the small kitchen and rummage for stale, fine flour. This was where Derek Culver used to prepare my birthday noodles at this time of year. I leaned in front of the window and watched as he went about his business. Perhaps it was then that I fell hopelessly in love with him. The window and the swing are the same as before. It's just that time has changed, and the man who made me birthday noodles will never come again. "Miss," Dai called softly. I took back my thoughts and followed Derek Culver's example. Mixing the flour and cutting the noodles. It took me half a day to make a bowl of birthday noodles. Dai and I sat at the table, a little cold. Purple Butterfly complained, "The Grand Duke is also really know that the girl today birthday, but also go to accompany that laborer's Lou girl." She was conscious of her slip of the tongue, and was busy changing her words. I heard the front yard granny hun said, "The girl don't take it to heart." I hooked my lips and smiled. Lilo Ludwig is his fiancé. He should be accompanied. How could I take it to heart? 9 Purple Butterfly turned to me and asked, "Miss, do you have any birthday wishes?" I was stunned for a moment. Last year, Derek Culver asked me the same question. At that time, I made a wish to him, a long and happy life, a long and unforgettable life. But now, I wanted to ask for a goodbye, never to see each other again. At that moment, the courtyard was bustling with activity. Dai ran out to see, and hurried back. "Miss, it is the old madam and the second girl they are." My heart sank. The Chui family's old madam has always disliked my mother and me. Why did she personally come to my courtyard? Nina Culver's petulant voice rang out. "Come on, arrest this fox-charming girl who is messing up the back of the house." As soon as the words fell, several servants rushed over, pushed Dai to the ground, and clamped down on me left and right. I asked, "Why are you arresting me?" Nina Culver snorted. "Jane Marlowe, your skin is really thicker than the roots of a city wall. Don't you know what you've done? Why are you pretending to be a virgin?" Is that what Derek Culver meant? I told him I'd never think of him again. Does he still feel uneasy and want to label me as an adulterer? A chill rose from the bottom of my feet as Nina Culver threw a handkerchief in my face. The evidence is all there. Let's see how you can still argue. I looked down and saw the word I embroidered on the paddle. Immediately afterward, a man tied up with 5 flowers was pushed out. It was the boy who kept the horses in the outer courtyard. The boy pointed at me and said, "The eldest girl gave me the paddle herself and asked me to come to the inner courtyard for a private meeting at the 3rd hour of the 11th day of the 11th month." Nina Culver snorted coldly and said, "If I hadn't seen this man sneaking around and brought him in for questioning, I don't know what kind of nasty things would have happened today." Jane Marlowe, you've got a lot of nerve. Your brother took pity on you and took you in. And this is how you repay him. I instantly realized what was going on. That day at the palace banquet, my handkerchief disappeared. I thought I lost it somewhere. Now I realize it was Lila Ludwig who took it when we bumped into each other. They'd spun a web, waiting for me to jump into it, to fulfill the rumors. I stopped paying attention to Nina Culver and turned to Elder Lady Cui. Ning did not do any of these things. I beg Elder Lady to be clear about it. I thought that although the old man loathed us mother and daughter, he could at least be fair. I didn't expect the old madam's face to sink, and said sternly, "Nien girl is right. Duo brother's heart is kind, and took you in the house. But you learned those virtues of your mother, and corrupted my Cui family's reputation. Now that the evidence is all there, don't make any more flowery words. Come on." Escorted into the ancestral hall to wait for the punishment. It seems that they want to convict me of adultery today. The Cui family ancestral hall is a place where you can go in with your life, but you can't go out with your life. Even if I get out, my reputation will be ruined. I winked at Zaidi and told her to go find Uncle. At this time, a cool voice rang out. "What's this for?" Following the voice, Derek Culver was striding across the courtyard. Behind him was Lila Ludwig, dressed in a goose-yellow brocade dress when she saw Derek Culver arrive. A hint of weakness flashed across Nina Culver's face. Nina Culver greeted her and said, "Brother, it's just in time. Jane Marlowe was caught having an affair with a man, and grandmother is about to dispose of her." Derek Culver scanned the crowd suspiciously. Nina Culver picked up my handkerchief and handed it to Derek Culver. "This is the physical evidence." She described how I hooked up with the boy, and how I met with him, as if she had witnessed it with her own eyes. Derek Culver's face was so gloomy that it was scary. He walked to stand in front of me and spoke coldly. "Is what Onion said true?" I was dumbfounded. To have doubts is to believe 3 times. Derek Culver believed what Nina Culver said. I asked in return, "What do you think, brother? Flirtatious, frivolous and prodigal. Why should he knowingly ask what he has long characterized?" Derek Culver pursed his lips, and when he turned his eyes to see the cold birthday noodles on the table, he seemed to remember something, and his brow loosened a little. He asked again, "Is it true what Nin said?" I looked to Lila Ludwig, who was not far away, and there was a twinkle of pleasure in her eyes. I suddenly didn't want the bad guys to pull out so cleanly. I stared into Derek Culver's eyes and said, word for word, "What if I say it's not true? Would my brother believe me?" This paddle disappeared on the day of the palace banquet, and on that day, the only person who ever came close to me was Miss Liu, and my guess is that she and Nina Culver teamed up to harm me. Derek Culver's brows tightened. Lila Ludwig tensed, the quickness in her eyes replaced by panic. But Derek Culver, pressed, had no intention of asking her for proof. Instead, he looked at me and said, "Snow Iris is pure by nature. How could she harm you? I thought you had already put away the heart that you shouldn't have, but I didn't realize that now you've intensified your jealousy, and you've even learned to slander innocent people." He thought I was jealous of Lila Ludwig and that's why I was accusing her. I realized that I never really knew Derek Culver, and he never really knew me. It's funny that after 10 years of facing each other night and day, we're both blind in the eyes and in the heart. I pulled the corner of my mouth mockingly and stopped explaining. I let old Lady Cui throw me into the ancestral hall. Derek Culver did not move, stood still and looked at me, eyes full of disappointment color. If it was once upon a time, I would have cared about his opinion and been in awe of his disappointment. But now, I don't feel anything at all. I just want to hurry up and leave this place. Luckily, there are only 3 days left. The shrine was dark and cold, and the accumulated dampness burrowed into the cracks of my bones, stirring up a wave of soreness. I knelt on the futon, speculating that I wondered if Dai had gone to look for my uncle. At nightfall, an unexpected man, Derek Culver, came in carrying a food box. He placed the box in front of me, and inside was a bowl of birthday noodles. The familiar aroma and the shiny color were Derek Culver's handiwork. He opened his lips and said, "Today is your birthday. You have to be punished for making a mistake. But you still have to eat the birthday noodles." The voice was rare and gentle. My stomach was empty and I was a little hungry. I didn't say anything and took the chopsticks he handed me. One bite at a time. I ate the noodles. Once upon a time, I felt that the birthday noodles he cooked were the best thing in the world. But today, eating it, I felt that it was really bland. Even a little doubtful. Once upon a time, how could I love to eat such a thing? He suddenly spoke. "Those packages in your room. What's going on?" My movements stopped. I made up some excuse. "Nothing. Some old clothes." At that, Derek Culver looked a little strange. But I didn't want to go any further. I gathered the dishes into the food box and said, "Thank you, brother, for the birthday noodles. Brother's favor. Ning can't repay you." Derek Culver wanted to speak. After a long silence, he finally spoke again. "I will be going out for a few days. Your business will be discussed later. Oh, I subconsciously wanted to ask if I could come back in 3 days. The words came to my mouth, but I felt it was unnecessary. Once upon a time, when he went out on official business, I was always so uneasy that I couldn't stop telling him what to do, and it seemed like I couldn't finish talking for 3 days. Now, I don't know what to say. After half a day's thought, I only said, "Have a safe trip." I have imagined many possibilities with Derek Culver. But I never expected such an undignified ending. He was noble and open-hearted, while I was committed to the ground and stigmatized. With such a difference, even a goodbye seems redundant. For a few days, you can stay here in peace, and wait for me to come back. Derek Culver left these words before he left, watching his back gradually become smaller. I whispered, "See you later." I withdrew my eyes and quietly waited for Dai to move in for help. Unexpectedly, before I waited for Dai and my uncle, I waited for Nina Culver. 10 Nina Culver rushed into the ancestral hall with a couple of roughnecks. Nina Culver rushed into the ancestral hall with a couple of rough maids and tied me up with my adulterer. She was going to lynch me. I composed myself and said, "Nina Culver, even if I am guilty, we should open the ancestral hall, invite the elders, and go through the 3 divisions. Where are the rules and laws of the clan when you lynch me?" Nina Culver said angrily, "You've always been a smooth talker. Who knows what crazy things you'll say again." Back then, if you hadn't coaxed your brother to protect you, you would have been kicked out of the Chui family. The better he treats you, the more I hate you, and you should join that deadbeat mother of yours in hell. No, unchaste and unclean bitches like you are too dirty even for the king of hell. I knew she was already bewitched, and it was useless to say anything. I struggled, trying to break free. But the woman was very strong and held me down. Nina Culver leaned over and whispered in my ear, "Don't think I don't know what you have in mind for your elder brother. He is the first son of the Chui clan, and his character cannot be flawed, so the only way is to send you to your death." I was surprised for a moment. So, Nina Culver harmed me, not only because of cynicism, but also in order to protect Derek Culver. Nina Culver can see my heart. That is as sharp as Derek Culver. How did not notice it? Maybe it's not that he doesn't know. He just doesn't dare to face it. Next to the lake in the back of the mountain, there is a bamboo cage, just the right size to hold 2 people. Nina Culver ordered the servant to put me and the man into the bamboo cage. I was shocked that she wanted to sink us directly into the lake. The man panicked and shouted, "Second girl, spare my life. Didn't you say you would give me 100 taels of silver to return home as long as I falsely accused the eldest girl? How can you go back on your word?" Ruthlessness flashed in Nina Culver's eyes. The mouth of a dead man is the tightest. In case you are greedy and blackmail me with this matter again someday, won't it be troublesome? She turned to me and said, "Jane Marlowe, you should really thank your bitch mother. If it wasn't for her flirtatious being disliked by the Sioux family, leaving you with no support, I really wouldn't have dared to make a move on you. It's just a pity that Sue Wantang died too early. Otherwise I would have let her experience the feeling of separating her flesh and blood from her family, so that she can also taste the pain that I had suffered back then." Nina Culver's face was twisted with hatred. After she said that, she waved her hand and the servants started to push the bamboo cage into the lake. Seeing that the bamboo cage was already halfway into the water, I could only try my best to stall for time. I looked at Nina Culver, deliberately showing a look of pity, and said, "A noble daughter of a high family, but she has to compete for favor with someone like me. It's really pitiful when you think about it. It's just a pity that your mother was my mother's underling, and you are my underling. Once upon a time my brother favored me. In the future my brother will miss me. You can no longer compete with a dead man." She was so enraged that she waved her hand for the servants to stop rushing over to the bamboo cage. She raised her hand and slapped me several times. I was hit in the head and my face was burning, while she was slapping me like crazy. Suddenly, a stern voice came from the distance. "Stop." A handsome man in official uniform came towards the lake in big strides. It was Uncle. Purple Butterfly followed him, and as soon as she saw me, she pounced on me. The servants were stunned, and Nina Culver froze for a moment. Nina Culver also froze for a moment, and when she regained her senses, she shouted, "Someone's coming. A foreigner is intruding," before she could finish her sentence. She was kicked down by her uncle, and Nina Culver fell to the ground, covering her heart and crying out in pain. 11 The Chui family had heard the news from somewhere and rushed here. No one showed up when I was about to be sunk in the lake, and when Nina Culver suffered a loss, someone immediately came to do justice. Old Lady Chui stood at the forefront, rubbing her heart and saying, "What a sin! What a sin!" Brother Duo was kind enough to take her in, but she lured a foreign man to kill and maim my Nyan sister. Unkind and unrighteous, unfaithful and unfilial. A woman like that should be sunk in the lake. The elders of the Chui family also spoke out. "I told you that this woman could not be kept." But Brother Duo didn't believe me, and now the whole family is being dragged down by her. What kind of girl would do such a dirty thing as adultery with a subordinate and hooking up with a man outside the family? No need to say more. Sinking lake. I won't allow a woman with a foreign name to be arrogant in my Chui family. Uncle rescued me from the bamboo cage and protected me behind him, coldly sweeping his eyes over the Chui family's crowd. He said in a deep voice, "Are you finished?" He had been leading soldiers for a long time, and the killing aura on his body was extremely heavy, bluffing the crowd into silence. "When you're done, get out of the way. From now on, Jane Marlowe and the Riverside Culver family, the favor and righteousness is over. There is no more relationship." The old madam scolded angrily. "Who do you think you are? When did it become your turn to make decisions? Men, blow this wild man of unknown origin out." The servant dawdled, not daring to come forward. The old madam was about to snap again, when a sharp male voice rang out. "Wait." Following the voice, she saw a man dressed as an internal official walking slowly. The old madam immediately changed her face. Respectfully, she said. The subordinate does not know the rules. How can I lead your honor to this awful place? Quickly, lead your honor to the main hall. The inner official interrupted her and said, the old slave is here to seek General Su. The crowd looked at each other in disbelief. The inner official bowed in the direction of my uncle and I and said, General Su. His Majesty has decreed that you are ordered to return to Northridge County quickly. The Chui family members looked at the scene in shock. The old lady asked, NEI officer, is there a misunderstanding? This person is a fanatic. The inner official said with a straight face. Old Lady Chui is careful with her words. General Su is His Majesty's personally appointed General of Tiger's Might, not some kind of fanatic. Hearing the inner official's words, the old madam and all the people of the Chui family looked relieved. Nowadays, who doesn't know that the court is divided between the civil and military factions? Among the military officials, the most promising one is General Oliver Storm Su, who won 7 victories in 7 battles in the Northlands, conquered the lost Northridge County, and was appointed by His Majesty as General Tiger Weather, governing Northridge County. Although the Chui family is 100 years old, it is already in decline. In front of the military generals who held military power and were deeply favored by the emperor, they also had to be 3 times shorter. The corners of the old lattice mouth twitched a few times, squeezed out a smile and said, just now, it was my old eyes that were dim. I didn't recognize great General Su. So don't take it to heart, General. Chui family members chimed in. Generals come to the door. Why don't you place an invitation beforehand and let me know? Making all these misunderstandings. I lowered my eyes and suppressed the urge to laugh. These self-proclaimed noble families, in the face of power, automatically removed their pride. They never cared what the truth was. Only power could make them talk properly. Uncle said word for word, even though my sister was in the wrong. Human death is a big deal, but you guys have no respect and wantonly insulted her. Enning is not a daughter of the Chui family, but she has been raised in the Chui family since she was a child. But you have bullied her into being an orphan and jeopardized her life. Enning and I are nieces and nephews, but you accuse me of having an affair with her. It is not Ning who is unfaithful, unfilial, and unkind. It is you. The Chui clan. These words made everyone's faces ugly. Uncle turned his head to the inner official and nodded, saying, Inner official Qin, have you seen everything clearly today? I hope you will report back to His Majesty in full, the reward that His Majesty has promised me. I have thought about it, and I would like to ask His Majesty to find out who framed Enning, and deal with him severely. Internal Officer Qin nodded. General, please go to Northridge County without fear. His Majesty will make his own decision regarding the capital city. Upon hearing this, Nina Culver, who was standing beside the old madam, had a pale face. No longer caring about the people present, my uncle took me away from the Chui family. I took one last look at the place where I had lived for 14 years, with the door plaque hanging high and the courtyard deep, like a beast with a big mouth. Suddenly I was a little glad to leave now. I said in my mind, Derek Culver, may we never meet again in the mountains. Then, without looking back, I boarded the carriage and traveled north. 12 The scenery of the Northland was indeed as magnificent as my uncle had said. It cleansed me of the haze of the past 18 years. I changed my name to Jiang Man and followed my uncle to learn the art of war. My uncle complimented me on my talent in the art of war. Here, I realized that there are more books for women to read than the female commandments. A woman's feasible path is not limited to the back of the house. The barbarians in the north were constantly disturbing me, so I helped my uncle with his advice. I won several battles, and my name as a female Juga became known in the army. After recovering several cities in a row, a reward came from the capital. His Majesty gave me the title of Northern Wild Goose Strategist. honoring me for being an exemplary woman. Along with the reward came Derek Culver, who I hardly recognized when he stood before me. I hardly recognized him as he stood in front of me, all weathered and worn down by the winds and sands of the border. He looked at me disheveledly and said, "Ò Ning, come back with me." Oh, I corrected him. My name is Jiang Man, Jane Marlowe, and I am dead in the lake at the back of the Chui residence. He stepped forward and murmured, "Odo, you know how long I have been looking for you. Everyone told me you were nowhere to be found, so I searched state by state, city by city, from the capital to the northern lands, and there wasn't a day I didn't miss you. Even if you changed your name and identity, can you erase our past 10 years of love?" I spoke faintly. "Derek Culver. I'm done with the Chui family. I'm now Jiang Man, no longer the Jane Marlowe who lived off of you. You told me to get over myself. I've moved on, so don't dwell on the past." A flash of pain flashed in his eyes and he mouthed, "I was wrong to insult you like that. Those words of mine. Because I am cowardly. I care about reputation. Care about identity. I'm afraid of getting a reputation for disregarding human decency and moral integrity. The more I talk about you, the more reason I have to convince myself not to show any affection. In order to restrain my feelings for you, I went to the Liu family to get a new wife, thinking that I could restrain my heart, but it didn't work at all. I can't control my heart. I am heart-pleased with you, Ò Ning." Such words 17-year-old Jane Marlowe would have rejoiced to hear. But at this time, I have no waves in my heart. I looked at him quietly and said, "Derek Culver, the wine. It is no longer the flavor of the year. People, too, since you are betrothed, marry well. I wish you and Miss Liu 100 years of happiness." Derek Culver suddenly grabbed my hand. "I have retired from the Liu family. I am now a free man. We can be together, Ò Ning." Reserved as he is, there are times when he is this obsessed. I slowly withdrew my hand and said, "But I don't want to anymore. The green mountains of this world are scorching. The breeze of the streams is far and wide. I want to see these beauties more than spending time on a man." I stopped paying attention to him and turned back to the camp. Derek Culver called Ò Ning over and over again, pain in his voice. I didn't look back. The new trooper asked me who Ò Ning was. I smiled and said, "Oh, it is probably a silly girl who is very short of love." Oh, Derek Culver's arrival was a mere hiccup. I thought it would evoke unpleasant emotions, but I didn't expect to drop them after only one meal. I'm told he hovered around the camp and never left. A few months later, when my uncle and I returned to the capital, Derek Culver trailed behind the army again. 13 My uncle asked me if I wanted to get rid of him. I smiled and shook my head. Just an irrelevant person. No need to bother. The emperor specially hosted a palace banquet to receive us. It was the same scene as the day of Consort Shu's birthday, only this time, I sat very close to the imperial throne. The emperor called me forward for questioning. I answered well. To his satisfaction. He made me General Crimson Tassel and promoted my uncle to General of the North. The crowd looked on with enthusiasm. Those who had taunted me before changed their tune and exclaimed, "General Crimson Tassel is truly a woman of honor and a role model for women like us. A noblewoman helped me to fight for my honor." General, such an open and honest person, was almost framed by Nina Culver and Lila Ludwig back then. If you ask me, the punishment of sending them to Purity Convent is still too light. Nina Culver and Lila Ludwig were in cahoots with Lila Ludwig. They did something so vicious. They deserved to suffer. I was surprised to hear that His Majesty only sent them to the Purity Convent to train at their family shrines. But it was the heads of the Chuelu families who asked to be sent to the Purity Convent, a place where the rules are even more stringent than those of a Taoist temple. If a woman goes there, she can't come out until she dies of old age. The Chui family and the Liu family are really impressive in their ability to cut off their tails to survive. At this time, a figure stood up from the mat and knelt down in the Great Hall. I fixed my eyes over and realized that it was Derek Culver. He was still wearing the same tattered clothes he wore back in Northridge County. He kowtowed 3 times towards the emperor and said aloud, "Your Majesty, I wish to seek to marry Jiang Man. I beg your Majesty's permission." The Great Hall, which had originally quieted down due to his actions, instantly boiled over. The murmurs of the crowd reached my ears. Could those rumors from before be true? Elder brother and stepsister. Such a thing against human morality. Is Mr. Chui crazy? I gripped the cup in my hand tightly, a bit chagrined. Obviously a happy day. All spoiled. The emperor frowned, his face showing displeasure. With a warning tone, he opened his mouth. "Minister Chui, return home after eating drunken wine. Don't talk nonsense." Derek Culver's gaze was firm. "Your Majesty, I have not been drinking. I have been in love with Jiang Man for many years. It's not a whim, nor is it nonsense. I want to ask Jiang Man to be my wife. I beg your Majesty to fulfill my wish," he said and kowtowed a few more times. The emperor looked at me and inquired, "What about the meaning of General Crimson Tassel?" I put down my glass of wine and walked over to the main hall and knelt in one place with Derek Culver. Derek Culver turned his head to look at me and his face flashed with joy. The emperor's face grew more somber. Just when the crowd thought I was going to nod, I said in a single word, "An elder brother is like a father. Etiquette must not be abrogated." With that I turned to Derek Culver and bowed towards him. The joy on his face faded and he looked at me incredulously. "1 bow for the favor of not abandoning you. 2 kowtows for the honor of your training. 3 kowtows for the kindness of your parenting." The emperor's face relaxed and praised. There is no greater good than that of a human being who is close to his father. I knew that after this, Derek Culver and I would never be the same again. I slowly got up and went back to my seat, where Derek Culver was still kneeling. His back was desolate. Suddenly, he spurted out a mouthful of blood, and then fell heavily on the hall. As he fell to the ground, his lips buzzed. It was calling out, "Ò Ning." I didn't make a move and quietly watched as the palace guards took him down and cleaned up the dirty blood on the ground. Once upon a time, when he coughed lightly, I would have to worry for half the night. Now, watching him spit up blood, my heart felt nothing at all. I knew that Derek Culver had become a memory in my life. It's late in the spring garden and the begonias have fallen. I am somewhat glad that I chose to become a ginger man. From the mud full of stigmas, I struggled to survive. I have finally come to a new world, after turning over the rotten sky and the rotten earth. I don't have to win a man's devotion anymore, and I don't have to rely on a man for a false peace of mind. A woman is born to be a mountain, a stream. She can have her own wings. Why should she look up the ladder? I drank the wine in the cup in one gulp, which was stronger and more mellow than the one buried under the begonia tree in the past years.